let me tell you something, brother. When I'm working on my 24-inch pythons, dude, I'm listening to Let's Find Out with Diego. Train, say your prayers, and listen to Let's Find Out with Diego. Ooh, what you gonna do, brother, when Let's Find Out with Diego runs wild on you?
Are you curious about the unknown, the unexplainable? Do you find yourself intrigued by the mysterious and paranormal side of our world? Join us on an adventure into the world of inexplicable discoveries and investigations that may someday give us the final answer as to what may be behind the veil of reality. The borders of space and time have opened once again, and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia, it's time once again for Let's Find Out with Diego. The universe is waiting for you.
The borders of space and time have opened once again, and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia. It's another episode of Let's Find Out with Diego. Thank you for taking this journey with me. On this episode of Let's Find Out, on July 20th and 21st, Paraconn comes to the Baldwin Center in Stratford, Connecticut. This event will feature many respected speakers, paranormal investigators, medium podcasters, and vodcasters. We will be learning more about this event and get the 411 on all the special guests and speakers. All this plus more. Please welcome to Let's Find Out the two Paraconn mega powers that will be bringing you this spectacular event. They are known as the Shaman and the Showman LLC, Thomas Patrick Gormley and Charles F. Rosenay. Gentlemen, welcome to Let's Find Out, a super huge event coming up in July. I don't know how you guys can herd all these cats under one roof, but here we are, and we're getting into this tonight.
Very excited. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, very excited to see you again, my friend.
Oh, happy to see you both. Thomas, you've been on the show a couple of times already, and last time we talked about some pretty cool stuff, which I won't give away quite yet. But let's just say it was a interesting kind of crime we covered, Bigfoot related. And other than working on the Paracon, because I know I understand putting together events it's very stressful, and also for your partner, you've released a couple of fun Tuesday morning serials. I love watching those shorts. For those that have not seen them yet, can you give them a teaser of what you've done so far and what's coming up in the future?
I've done a lot of them. Every Tuesday I do Tuesday morning serial because my background, I retired from the state of Florida. I was a criminal behaviorist, profiler. I worked in the prison system for crisis management, worked in a confinement unit at a psychiatric prison. So I had to learn how to profile the inmates in case something went off and how to control it. So after I left Florida, it became a hobby of mine to profile historic serial killers. So on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, on Tuesdays, you'll see little snippets, 1-minute snippets, some interesting information about serial killers, which I like to do every Tuesday because people learn from it and how to possibly avoid getting into a situation where they might meet up with a serial killer. So it's an educational type of thing.
It is, and I know it gets a lot of shares and likes. It's actually, that's probably the best day of the week to do it because, Monday, nobody's really going to want to learn anything. I think Tuesday, they're ready to tackle the week, and getting this information is great, man. So I really love what you do. And Charles, my friend, this is the first time you've been on the show, and we've met tonight for the first time. It's a pleasure having you on because I've heard a lot of great things about you from Thomas. And if you don't mind, I was going to say the long short of your history, what you've done. It probably take an hour and a half. You've done so many things, but what we're going to do is, because you have the experience with the paranormal, you're an author. You've also acted in many films. One of the things that stood out on the website, and I'm over here on the website right now at paraconn.org, and I scroll down to the bottom where it features you, of course, and I see this awesome cover on this awesome book and the subject, True Stories of Connecticut.
Yeah.
Can you give us let's talk about that book. Very interesting.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, because there are so many things to talk about, and Tom's really sweet about reading all my press and believing it. So, if he's told you anything, it's all stuff that I've read. What happened is put on, a few of these Paracons, and met so many amazing people like Mr. Gormley, who are far more knowledgeable and experienced and more in the paranormal world than I ever would claim to be. And what I found was everyone had just amazing stories where they had great results. And I would say, well, is there that one? Tell me something that stands out in your mind. It's always, oh my God, there's so many. And I said, well, no, I'm writing a book. I want one. I want that wow one, the one that drops your jaw, that when you share it, everyone goes, Then, and what I did is I accumulated about 30 of those stories, including 3 or 4 chapters of my own, and thought, well, guess what? There's the ghost of Virginia and the ghost of San Diego, and there's the ghost of Connecticut, but there isn't a book that actually tells what happened to individuals at haunted locations. There's plenty of them that tell about the locations or their history or, what might have happened there, in the turn of the century. Well, these were actual, that was my criteria. It had to be true and it had to be somehow connected with Connecticut. I thought it was a book that was missing. In fact, there should be a book like this in every haunted city in America or every haunted state. But True Ghost Stories of Connecticut came about that way, where I took people's stories. I didn't want them to embellish it. I didn't want them to make it scarier, add ooh moments to it. Just tell it like it is. And I did some editing, to make it sound as journalistically correct as possible. Added some photos if they were available. Did a bio on the people who contributed the book. And it's been just such an amazingly successful production. The book has been very well received. And it's what's great is I get to go to conventions, my own and others, and sell the book and sign copies of it. And it's a real treat. It's a nice part of the whole portfolio of books and acting and producing and all that good stuff.
And as I'm looking down the cover, I'm scrolling down into it. Forward by the amazing Kreskin. How did you manage to get that? Because that guy, he's been around for a very long time. Very well known.
He's been around about 150 years, which is unbelievable. Yes. And I say that, with a little jest, but he's not doing that great right now. We've been friends for a long time. I booked him on a bunch of things through the years, domestically and overseas. And in fact, he was Tom and my guest in Salem at our last paranormal and horror convention there in Salem, Massachusetts. But he contributed a chapter to my first book ever, which was called The Book of Top 10 Horror Lists, where I reached out to celebrities to get their own horror list, whether it was horror movies, horror themes, things that scared them, whatever. And he was such a good, a contributor to that. And he writes so well that I said, well, I'm writing this other book. I know you're not in Connecticut, you're in New Jersey, but would you do the forward for me? Which not only did he do, but he also revealed in the forward his most unbelievable true ghost story that happened to his most unexplained occurrence. And it actually has nothing to do with Connecticut, but I thought, well, you know what? It's Kreskin. It's a great story. I'm including it in the book. And that was part of the forward to the book. And people just who pick it up and read the story, and it's one of those wow moments. And it's also, wow, how did you get them? So it's a double wow for that one.
Amazing. Because I'm looking and I keep scrolling down the bio. Something else stands out. And I'm all over the road, but because I promise you we'll get to the Paracon here.
No worries.
Dracula tours. Now, I read that part because we're talking about the real deal, Transylvania and Romania, not like this Paris, Texas kind of stuff, like a real Transylvania. And not long ago, I was talking to somebody that actually had this on their bucket list.
Yes.
And then now I read this. So long short, my brother, Drac tours.
I got to tell you, Diego, so I'm a rock and roll guy, a music guy, and also a monster paranormal horror guy. And for almost 40 years or maybe more, I've been doing Beatle tours to Liverpool. And I always hear that bucket list thing. You know, if someone's a rock and roll guy or a Beatles fan and they want to do the ultimate, well, that's the event they go on. They go on my Beatles tour. And I've been doing that forever, and I host it. And I thought, well, what else do I love? What other events can I do? What amazing vacation can I come up with? I thought, well, let's do a vampire vacation in Transylvania, never believing that I could pull off something in what was at the time a third world country, you know, Eastern Europe, not very accessible in the days before we had, you know, cell phones, the days before there were computers. So I found the right tour guides. I myself hosted the first one in the 90s and brought a batch of people who had the greatest time of their lives, and went to all the castles and the place where Vlad was born and the place where he's buried. And it's a kind of a mix between the history, the truth, the lore of Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler, and Bram Stoker's novel Dracula, the fiction, the fun of Dracula, who's right behind me listening to every word I say. And so the Dracula tour, which goes actually to Transylvania, to Romania, people don't believe it, every year now. This is our 26th year, and so many people, they say this was my bucket list. I've always dreamed of going to this unholy land, for lack of a better word, and not knowing that we could actually do such a trip. So I'm in so many ways, I'm honored that I could be that guy who makes it available to people who want to do this unbelievable journey. But I hosted it the first 12 years of the 25, 26 years we've been doing it, along with a Romanian tour guide who gets it. He knows the history, but also loves the horror and the monsters, and is able to incorporate all the themes the same way I do. And so after about 10, 12 years, I stopped going so I could devote more time to things here in the US, as far as Halloween and all the horror stuff and all the adventures and promotions that I do. And he still hosts it. His name is Radu, which is like John here in America. And right. Radu is unbelievable. People who go just come back raving about it. And it goes on because it's such an amazing event. Drac, DRACTOURS, dractours.com.
And one last question about that tour, because how did you manage to reach out to, well, we traveled to Romania. Did you have to sell this to the Romanian Board of Tourism, or did you have to speak to somebody with the government to get some sort of I guess like here in the United States, you have to get all sorts of licenses to do, you know, conventions or sporting events. How did that go over there?
Well, I'm a licensed tour operator, not a travel agent, a tour operator, having done the Beatles and all the rock and roll stuff for so many years. So in reaching them, there were already trips to Romania where someone would go to Bucharest and some of the major cities, and then they would do that one-day Drac tour, which would bring them maybe to a castle, and maybe they would eat in a restaurant that was Dracula themed, and that was it. And that was like a joke to me. I mean, yeah, all right, I guess that's the senior citizen version of going to Romania. Just like if you go to Eastern Europe and maybe you go to East Germany and you find a way to get to Frankenstein's castle and you spend, 5 minutes there. For me, I build a whole tour around it. We actually did a vacation to Prague, Eastern Europe, and Germany, which included Frankenstein's castle. We did a Frankenstein tour, but that was a one-off. The Dracula tour, when I approached all the travel people in Romania, they thought it was unbelievable that had never been done before. And yes, we welcome it. The Romanian Tourism Board loved the idea of it. At the time, Romania was not as westernized, and any commerce they opened up their arms to. It was just kind of after communism had ended, and it was a good time to start doing these type of events. And they've been very successful. People who go, you can go to the best restaurant on the planet, and it's going to get a 4.9. Someone's going to have a cold something or other steak. There's going to be. Everyone who goes on this trip, 100% satisfaction, because it's so fun, it's so informative, it's educational, but it's like-minded people going on the trip that they probably dreamed about or never knew they could go on their whole lives, and then going, to Vlad's, the remnants, the remains, the ruins of his castle, Bran Castle, where every vampire movie you envision, and you see that unbelievable Dracula castle. We go there. The places where they impaled the people from other countries who tried to invade Romania. We go there. We go where Vlad was born, where he was buried. We go there. It's just endless. In 1 week, we pack in every possible connected event with Dracula and Vlad.
Yeah, you got me sold already. Now, instead of going to Connecticut next year, I might just have to go to Romania, or maybe knock both of them out of my bucket list. But so now for the main event, we're talking Paraconn, and I'm looking at the list of speakers that will be there. Some of them, I mean, I know personally. Some of them I don't know yet, which I will. Some of them are part of the family.
Yes.
Question for you, because I don't know which one wants to answer first. When you're putting such an event like this, and you have a good number of people that will be there presenting, speaking, and or also vendors, what do you look into as far as before you book somebody to come speak? What is it about them that needs to draw you to have them at such an event? Because I would imagine that being an event such this scale, they really have to be on the money.
Yeah, that's a great question. And just as I defer to my cohort here, when I know of a great guest, or he it's mostly him who comes up with these great guests. And if I do, I always run it by him. And what do you think? Do you think this is a good guest? Do you think this person will draw? Do you think they're legitimate? Are they going to be a good speaker? Neither of us make that decision on our own. We're always bouncing off each other. And so I'm going to now also defer to him as the same way I defer to him on getting the guests. I'm going to defer to him on answering on what the parameters are for when we get guests in to come.
Yeah. So a lot of the times when we're trying to think of guests is like Charles said before, he's a monster guy. He's a music guy. I'm like the paranormal guy. We complete each other, and that's what makes all these things that we do world class. I think with guest wise being the background of paranormal, I know a lot of people, like you said, Diego, you know a lot of the people, some of them you don't know, but probably one of our biggest gets this year is, you go to these Paracons, sometimes some of these other places, you see the same people over and over again and all that. To make it exciting, we actually have probably one of our biggest guests this year is Andy Andrews. Now, Andy Andrews was one of the first investigators on Ghost Hunters.
Yes.
In the first couple seasons. And then he went off and did Ghost Hunters International. He has never done a Paracon. He has never talked about his experiences at any Paracon. So this is something exciting. You have to come and see this, because this guy is got all this knowledge in what he did on TV and what his beliefs are and all that. Mm-hmm. So this is one of the most exciting people to see speak at the convention. So, and we have so many different people. Probably one of my favorites. I don't know if you watch, the Paranormal Caught on Video and all that TV show. So they have the speakers and all that on, and so we have Nan Sturgis is going to be on. He's one of the talking heads on the show, and he's unbelievable wealth of knowledge. So there's so many people that are going to be on this. There's, we have people that are in the paranormal. We have probably one of the most well-versed psychic mediums, Kenneth Drake, who is the paranormal psychic medium to Hollywood. So he's done readings, I think something like over 5,000 readings.
Wow.
And he's always listed, they always put him as the number one psychic medium in the network. And this guy's incredible. And they're different. These are people that haven't done Paracons before. So I know there's a lot of Paracons out there. I always support every Paracon. Charles and I will always support everybody in the paranormal. And we're always behind them. But the thing is I think when Charles and I are putting shows together, we want to make it fresh. We want to give you a different view. We want you to see different people that you've never seen before. And that's what draws people in. And that's what makes it exciting. You know, whether it be the speakers and some of the vendors that we have, they have incredible stuff that you can't miss. So it's going to be a fantastic weekend for the Paracon.
And it's not easy to get guests, you know, who've never done a Paracon before and have any kind of, you know, gravitas, you know, who have either a following or people know who they are. We can get 100 more, you know, psychics and people, you know, who are probably great speakers and probably will be great guests. But part of it as a producer, as the showman, I want to hopefully get names that people will say, oh, wow, really? He's at the show? Well, I got to meet him. I got to get a picture with him. I got to get his autograph. I got to get his book. I want to hear what he's going to say on stage. And I think the lineup for this show is probably one of the best on the East Coast in so long, if not ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a strong lineup. It's almost like the WrestleMania of Paraconn, to use wrestling references I always do all the time, right?
That's a great line. Can you write that down, Tom? The WrestleMania of Paracon.
We'll have Melissa put it into the website.
But getting back to something you both mentioned earlier, and I don't know. I'll ask the question, and I'm not sure how you're going to answer, but if you don't want to get too many details. So you talked about Andy Andrews and Kenneth Drake, very, very well-known people in the industry and in this discipline. And you say they've never done Paracons before. Seeing that they are one of the top folks there, any reason they give you any reasons why they have not? Is it because sometimes maybe being on TV or having a one-on-one with somebody is way different than going out there and presenting in front of a crowd, or is it because
Diego
they don't know how to trust anybody?
It's me. Look at his personality. How can anyone refuse? Hello.
I wouldn't refuse, not at all.
Yeah, I you know, a lot of it is some of these guys back in the day, they did their thing and they got out of it. But for Charles and I, it's people need to hear you. They need to hear what your experience was, and just counseling them and getting them to do these events. You know, with Kenneth Drake, the reason why he hasn't done a lot of events because he does his own readings, he does his own thing, and getting him to do something like this to make it more open so people can experience, you know, what he does. It's absolutely mind-blowing of what he does and what he's able to pick up. I know a lot of psychic mediums, and you know, you go through. We have a few that are going to be at the Paracon, but this guy is just the real deal. And you know me, I debunk everything. You know, I don't want to bring people in that, you know, I want them to wow people, and this guy is a wow factor. And even Andy Andrews, you know, he was on one of the biggest shows ever.
Yeah,
and nobody has heard. Yeah, nobody's heard his point of view of it. So that's fresh. That's exciting. That's what people want. That's what we do.
That's not to disparage any other guests. I mean, to us, we mention those two because they stand out and they haven't done shows. But if you go down, I think there's 3 blocks of guests. To us, it's all equal. I mean, everyone is as, you know, as special and as deserving to be on the panel as the other. And I'm looking forward to how they themselves are going to connect with each other. The big thing we try to do, and we don't always succeed, because it's not always our fault, is the elimination of drama. And in getting certain guests, we want them to have fun. If the guests have fun, well, guess what? The attendees have fun, and it makes everything go smoother. And I think that's sometimes lacking in so many things, whether it's a paranormal investigation, whether it's a book on the paranormal, whether it's a convention, is, you know, everyone is so serious. And I understand this is a very serious topic, but we're also doing it for entertainment value. And we're also doing it so people will walk away and say, oh God, I had a great weekend, or wow, it was so amazing meeting that guest. I produced Beatles conventions for 40 years, and I attended horror conventions for 30 years. So I knew that I would walk away from a show, and if I got to meet, a celebrity, whether it was a horror guy or a paranormal guy, a rock and roll guy, I walked away and I couldn't wait to tell everybody what a great time I had. And did I learn stuff? Yeah, of course. Were there seminars? Yes. But I think that's all part of the package: the learning, the self-discovery, the awareness. But gosh, if you don't have fun, then we've failed. And I think I don't think we've failed yet on anything we've ever done as far as people having fun.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because it's the same way with a lot of things that Thomas knows. Guys like me or Adam Began, we have shows, and not only we try to present some facts and some stories, but we want people to have fun too, because sometimes some of these things can be kind of energy draining, because sometimes it's just so emotional. But then sometimes if you throw in some of that fun in there, it just lightens up the room. And I mentioned Adam Began for a reason, because the historian Ghost Hunter, he's got a very unique way of not only presenting facts but entertaining. And I'm glad you have him on. Also, he's also my agent, so he's a great guy.
Who is Bagel? Who's this? I'm sorry, I'm just teasing. Adam, I love you. He's one of my favorite. I mean, Tom's here, but Adam is way above. I love him. Yeah,
I know. Everybody loves everybody else over me, so that's what happens.
Diego, you'll get a kick out of this, but Tom is like we're so close now and so tight. But the first thing I ever said to him, and he just rolled it. I go, God, I don't like you. I don't know where that came from. And he just laughed it off and said, well, it's okay. I don't like you either. And that was the beginning of this amazing friendship and
look at us now.
Yeah, exactly. I tell you, what Charles and I have gone through to put this Paracon together.
Yes.
People don't understand, when you put events together, it's very draining. But the main goal is, like we're talking about, we want to make sure that the guests that are there blow your mind, and everything that you hear and everything that you experience, you're like, your mouth drops open. Yes. But the best thing about it is you could have the experience of your life for very little amount of money to go see it. Nowadays, everything's so expensive. This is so minute, and you could experience something that you'll never forget. And we have some stuff up our sleeve for this Paracon that we're not even going to talk about. Unless you buy a ticket and you come, you're going to find out there's some mind-blowing things that are attached to the Baldwin Center in Stratford. So it's
not attachments, but attached, right?
Attached, yeah.
Right.
So, yep. And it has a lot of history, and it has a lot to do with our Paracon, and it has a lot to do with another event that we're going to be doing too.
Right. Yes.
Well, I mean, we have time. You want to mention what that event's going to be?
No, we want to save it for the next show. We want to come on in a few weeks. We don't want to talk about the Connecticut Witch Trials Festival, which is taking place August 10th and 11th in Hartford, Connecticut, because we don't want to confuse people who are coming to the Paracon in Stratford, Connecticut, July 20th and 21st.
Yep.
But you see how I got a plug in without plugging it? You saw that, right?
Yeah, you have to do that. We got to do that.
True professional, my friend. So,
oh my God,
I'm going to touch on something both of you mentioned earlier. I know the whole thing with putting together events. Back in my old days, I used to help a promoter and book and pro wrestling events, and as an agent and all that jazz, right? Yes. And we're talking about you mentioned egos. You mentioned that maybe there's some sort of professional, I don't know quite how to say it. Let's say adversaries, but competition of sorts. How do you handle, let's say, and I can't say any of these have egos or not. Maybe Adam, that's a healthy ego. I love that guy. How do you deal with it? Seeing that everybody's pretty much almost in the same field, trying to accomplish the same thing, but how do you deal with the is it an ego of I'm not saying it's a super 8. I only want green M&Ms, or is it just like maybe they just don't trust the other people that are there?
I want to answer it in terms of a paranormal answer. And tell me if I'm either brilliant or I'm ridiculous with this. But Diego, if you're going on a paranormal investigation and you have negative within you, there's a higher likelihood that you're going to attract or be a magnet to a negative force. And when we do events, I think the ego's out the door with us. We're there smiling and welcoming and having fun. And I think that conveys to the people walking through the door. I think it conveys to the vendors setting up at the tables, and it also conveys to the guests. So if there's any kind of a negative, I don't think it's going to show its ugly. I don't think it's going to rear its ugly head at our event. And if people have predisposed problems with other, maybe I don't want to be there because someone else is there. Well, they're not there. We don't even know about it. They couldn't come to the show for whatever reason, or they have other plans, or sorry, I think that has a lot to do with it. And maybe I'm being naive, and thinking we're just good guys and we try to, eliminate the drama. But I think that really plays a big part in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let me tell you this. All right. So when you do these Paracons, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of people doing different Paracons and all that. The thing is, we're all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to help people learn, have a good time. You have to put ego aside. And me being the empath that I am, when you put ego aside, you're more in touch with spirit. And that's what people want when they come to these events. They want that vibration. They want to have that good time. They want to have that, even if you come to this, if there's somebody you don't like, just go by their table, The thing is if you have the competition like that and all these bunch of people have that drama and they say, I'm not going to that event because so-and-so is there, all you're hurting is the other 50 or 60 other vendors that you need to help that you like. It's just one person. You could walk by the table and be an adult. All right. So Charles and I, we don't do stuff like that. There's people, even if I don't agree with their view, if they want to be a vendor, I'm not going to stop them from being a vendor. They have the right to work and show people what they do, and that's the thing that gets me in this field. Don't block anybody. Don't tell anybody not to go to an event. If it's one person, you could skip the table. That's all you got to do. There's 80 vendors, 50 vendors. Why does that bother you? Be an adult, enjoy it, have a fantastic time, because if you don't go, you might miss out on one of the best times you'll ever have.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when there is the conflicts, sometimes it emanates from jealousy, sometimes it emanates from, who knows where. And it's too bad. I've told this story before. I used to run a haunted attraction in Connecticut called Fright Haven, and it was the largest indoor haunted attraction, your Halloween haunted house type of place. And when I came into the business, it was really, back scratching and cat fighting. And the actors from one haunted house would go online and write, don't go to the other one. It sucks. The actors suck. And I called the other owners and I said, hey, this is ridiculous. If someone has a good time at my venue and has a great time at my haunted attraction on October 10th, well, guess what? On October 17th, they're going to want to go to another one. I said, this is insane. And I got to a point where all the haunted attraction owners were giving flyers out for each other's events as people walked out. I said, it makes sense. You have nothing to lose. I would want nothing more than to be at an event this weekend or next weekend or the weekend before our show, promoting my show and promoting their show and all that. And in most cases, that's how it is. I think we're going to our friend Sam Baltrusa's show in October, right, in Massachusetts, which is kind of the same month or a little before we have our Salem Paranormal and Horror Convention. It's not competition. It's friends supporting other friends. And in this business, there needs, I don't call it a business, I'm sorry. In this field, there needs to be so much more of that.
Yeah, because if one Paraconn does well, of course the other one's going to do well too. If everybody gets along and don't badmouth each other. I was using the word professional rivalry. It could be a healthy one, but it can also be unhealthy. But that's fine. This is not the way this show is going to roll. We talked about the other guests that we talked about Andy and Kenneth and Adam. Can you tell us more about the other ones that are going to be on there?
So one of the other ones, I think, is Laura Benson.
Oh, yeah.
So she's a psychic medium, but the thing that makes me excited about her is my wife and I, we go up to Cape Cod quite a bit into Provincetown. And there was a lady of the dunes, a woman that was murdered out in P-Town, out in the dunes years and years ago. And they finally figured out who she was. But Laura Benson was one of the principal psychics on that case. And she's had several books. She's been on several shows. And she's one of the big guests too. And, there's so many, like I said, Dan Sturgis is going to be on Paranormal Caught on Video. There's so many different ones. My friend Larissa Rex, who owns so many different companies and does, paranormal type of conventions also. So it's another thing of, like we talked about, sharing each other, promoting each other, and having each other at the different events. And she's got the 5 clairs, so she's very in tune to the paranormal. And she's a former military. I don't know if she was a lieutenant or something like that in the military. So it's crazy because you have that military background, being in the paranormal. It's quite a story there that you'll have to hear about.
It's just I think the problem is when we say a few, the risk of slighting others. Please go to the website. Go to www.Paraconn with 2 N's, because it's Connecticut, of course. Paraconn.org, not .com. www.paraconn.org, and read about the guests. And if you want to do a deeper dive, Google them and you'll read so much more. We do a 20-word description of each guest, but sometimes their bios go 15 pages. They've accomplished so much. But we recommend checking out the website and checking out all the guests. We don't do a disservice to the others. Adam, he's not going to be at the show, is he? He isn't one of our guests, is he?
Yeah, he's going to be there.
Oh man,
we can't get rid of that guy.
I guess he's on the website as well.
Yeah. Oh,
let me say something about Adam. I love that guy to death. Now when I read his text that he sends me,
yes,
when I read his text, I always hear his voice. That's the only person that works with. I don't know why.
I'll tell you something. He knew of my love of the Beatles. And when we saw each other at a con last October, the guy came with this unbelievably huge Beatles poster that I guess was his mom's or something. And it was just so wonderful. As if I didn't love him already, that even sealed the deal more. He's so special.
Yeah,
he is. And talking about Connecticut, something comes to my mind. I don't know, Thomas, I might have spoken to you about this or not.
Yeah.
I know this guy is a cryptozoologist out of Connecticut. I forgot his name. I'm ashamed to call him a friend, but I forgot his name right now. He was telling me of a story, and I believe this is a well-known truck stop in Connecticut where some truckers, there's a history of them having experiences with these beings. And I know we're getting off topic, but it's kind of on topic, and we're talking about Connecticut. We're talking about Paracon. Called rakes. So what they've done is that I don't know where this truck stop is. I would love to visit this, but apparently they're having some sort of scary experience or negative experience where these beings are telepathically connecting with these truckers. I guess they don't feel very well after they visit that truck stop. Thomas, do you know anything about that? Or Charles, have you heard about these things? Called rakes.
Charles is shaking his head. But I know what a rake is. You know, it's that shadowy kind of crawly type of figure and all that. But it can play havoc on your mentality. But I don't know which truck stop it is at. It's something I have to look into. And if Charles ever does this second volume of, the Connecticut haunted stories, then we would have to jump on somebody that knows a little bit more than that. So that would be a great story. I'm going to have to research that a little bit more. You know me, I'm just going to jump down the rabbit hole and find out a little bit more of that. So,
I love the rabbit hole. Charles, I'm not going to let you get away with this one because you talk about the Beatles.
Yes, sir.
We're talking paranormal. And I don't know how much of this is true or not. I kind of think it's true, but I think you know where I'm going with this.
Uh-oh.
So there's a time when the Beatles, because it's my mom's favorite band ever. So my mom loves the Beatles.
Yes.
I was more of an Elvis fan, so her and I have a rivalry. There's a time when the Beatles, very clean-cut gentlemen, sang nice songs. Something happens between one decade to the other, and they kind of morph to something a little bit different, a little more, I guess, esoteric or something like that. What is, if there is one, is there a Aleister Crowley Beatles connection?
Well, it's only one decade. I mean, we're talking, the 60s. By 1970, they were done. If you want to really, really research something, you want to look into the Paul is dead clues, because I think of all the things that are hard to believe. I mean, to this day, how do all these clues appear on all these albums and are completely coincidental? Of course, Paul wasn't dead. Of course, they were just, fabricated things. But the amazing coincidences of all that. And then there was someone who did a whole discussion of the Paul McCartney death clues and took it a step further. And I don't want to get into conspiracies, but the conspiracy that he came up with was brilliant, in that a Beatle had to be sacrificed at some point because someone sold their soul to the devil in order to be as successful as the Beatles were. I don't know, Thomas, if you've even heard this, but it was originally Paul McCartney. And when it wasn't Paul McCartney, well, guess who had to happen to in 1980 when we lost John Lennon for real. So this was part of his, whole analysis and conspiracy theory. And it was a fascinating discussion that people walked out not believing, but still pondering. So I don't know if that quite answers your question, but maybe it gives you a different avenue to think of when it comes to the Beatles and some possibilities there.
Anything's possible. I just think, if anything, it was brilliant marketing, because at that time people were so sensitive about these subjects that, the parents say no, but the kids always want to check it out.
It was genius. If whoever possibly came up with that as a marketing scheme should have been the multi-million-dollar, I want every company would hire. I don't think it was. I don't think that the Paul is Dead Clues was an intended marketing campaign, though it went on to sell millions of records and got people to play their records backwards and to take the magnifying glass and to analyze things. There's books on just those clues, and it's an amazing. Maybe we should do that as part of one of our Paracons and actually do a topic on that, because that would be combining all my worlds in one right there.
Yeah, that would be great. But one of the other big things that Charles is talking about with the Beatles, but probably one of the other big things in the music is the 27 Club. Going back to Robert Johnson and all that, and all these people that died, supposedly, like he's talking about, sold their soul to the devil, and they had to do the payback to become famous. And,
yes,
just the same thing. So
Janis and Jimi Hendrix, Morrison, Amy Winehouse, and there's a Kurt Cobain might even
Kurt Cobain, yeah. So
27 Club is pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, a Faustian bargain only works one way. It's never in your favor.
Yep. No, that's why you never call on it. You just do it the hard way, man. So never call on it. I always warn people all the time what they're dealing with. If you don't know what you're dealing with, don't play with it. So
Yeah.
Yep. No, you're absolutely true. And before we go, we talk about Connecticut. We're talking Paraconn. Connecticut has a rich history when it comes to paranormal and cryptid and all that kind of things. Can one of you share a really good story? Just a real good one about Connecticut and something that's happened there that maybe us who are south or more north of Connecticut haven't heard about this yet.
Oh boy. See, every chapter in my book, it would be worth telling. I do, as Thomas knows, because he's joined me on so many of these, I do a lot of library speaking engagements where I'll ramble on for an hour or so. I'll read a chapter or so from my book, and then Tom's takes over with teaching the people how to use paranormal equipment. And if it's an old library, we'll actually do an investigation of the venue. And it's been very, very fun and exciting. But none of the stories are so capsulized that I could tell it in 30 seconds. And Tom, you got one you can do on that? You can share?
I tell you, there's so much stuff that happens all the time. Let me talk really quickly. Charles and I did the Haunted Trolley. We had an event there. And it's so crazy because they have all these old trolleys from all over the country into this museum.
Yes.
So we brought people, on the rails, and we walked up into the museum, and we sat on all these trolleys. And probably the most amazing thing that's ever happened, like I talked about, I'm an empath, but occasionally I tune in and I have that occasional psychic pickup. All right. So we were on a trolley that was from New Orleans and all that. And I kept picking up on this guy named Billy. It came through our Ovilus type of equipment saying his name. And I'm trying to get Billy to let me know, but Billy kept saying, he was on this trolley and he wished he went to college. That was on the first day. On the second day that we did the event, I got more information that Billy went off to war and died. So we think that he's stuck because he never got to go to college. So we're on the trolley and we have all the people from the events because Charles and I do a lot of these events. And the mind-blowing thing is the reason why you should come to some of these events because you never know what's going to happen is I'm talking to Billy and all the instrumentation is going off. EMF is like spiking. And we know, and I'm trying to have a conversation while everybody's quiet listening. And I said to Billy, Billy, you may have died in the war and you wanted to go to college, but you sacrificed your life for our country. That is the exact same thing to going to college. And as soon as I said that, I think Billy made the decision that he didn't want to be there anymore, that it finally answered his question. All the instrumentation went to zero instantly. And it was mind-blowing. And one of our people that comes to a lot of our events, she's been doing this for over 30 years. She says, I've never seen somebody help somebody make the decision to pass on.
Wow.
And that's what we do. And that's probably one of the great stories, but I wanted to tune it in that way because a lot of people go on these ghost hunts and all that, and they don't go with people that know what they're doing. So Charles and I do these events to help people with professionals that do this for a living and all that, and do it a lot of it to learn how to do it properly and experience these things. And that's why, we love doing what we do. And we love doing these Paracons, these events, these psychic fairs, witch festivals, whatever you want to think of. It's more of the education, so people do it right. I do have the attachment to the Warrens years ago. It's let people know that you can't be playing with things you don't understand. Go see people that understand it to learn, so that way you could get the full effect out of it and have it be mind-blowing and life-changing.
Great one.
Yeah, as always, you always bring a good one. That's pretty deep, brother. I really appreciate both of you being on the show. And we're talking July 20th and 21st, Paraconn at the Baldwin Center in Stratford, Connecticut. And for more information, go to paraconn.org. Paracon with two N's because it's in Connecticut. Thank you for being on the show and for sharing your stories. And I really, every time I have Thomas. Of course, I'll have you back on again for the next thing. I really enjoy this part of the show where I get a lot out of it and I learn a lot. So I really appreciate you guys giving me that tonight.
Thank you so much. I'd love to stay longer, but I got a Diego.
We knew we were going to get that one.
I can't top that, my brother. This has been another excellent episode of Let's Find Out with Diego. Please check us out on all our social media pages, as well as on YouTube, but we're also on Rumble. Like, share, and subscribe. Also, Let's Find Out is now on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Catch the show on Saturdays at 2 a.m. For more information, please visit KGRADB.com. That's KGRADB.com. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Until next time, my friends.
Let's find out with Diego, the power of Diego Mania.
All content for Let's Find Out is property of CoHostDiego and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, CoHostDiego, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.